Hi all, welcome to Salesforce in 5 minutes. In this video, we are going to learn about return types inside Apex. But before getting started, if you really like my videos, I request you to please like this video and subscribe to my channel. So, what exactly is a return type? Let's understand it with a real-time example. So, this is my function, okay? I am going to call this function as talking Tom. Right, let's understand it with the auto draw. Okay, so I have talking Tom. TT is nothing but talking Tom. We all know what talking Tom is. We say something to him and he returns it back in the squeaky voice, right? We say something to him and he returns back to us to with a squeaky voice. So let's say I say something to him, he returns back it in the squeaky. Oh, yeah, he returns back inside the squeaky voice, right? I'm going to name it as S. Okay, he returns back in the squeaky voice simply. So I talk something to him, he returns back in the squeaky voice. So when you talk to the Tom, if you think about it in Apex or coding terms, talking Tom is nothing but a function, and the functionality of that function is nothing but to take the input from the end user and just convert it into the squeaky voice. Simple. So when you talk to the talking Tom, you expect that it's going to say something back. You expect from that function that it's going to return something, and when you want that function should return something back, that's where you add a return type. Okay, so when you expect something back from a function, that's where you add a return type. Right now, as you can see, this function has a void, right? Public void. Void means I do not expect anything back from this function. Void means I do not expect anything back from this function. It's just going to do its functionality, it's just going to do something operation, but I do not expect anything back from this function. That's what is void. Void means you don't have return type. But let's say I'm going to convert it into a talking Tom, right? Talking Tom will have a function, right? It returns back to, right? It's going to return the word into squeaky voice. So I'm going to convert. So basically, it's going to return me back the text, right? Whatever I say, it's just going to return me back the text, but in a squeaky voice. So it's going to return it in the form of string, right? And if as soon as I make the return type as string, if you see, I'll immediately get an error that there is no return type. So missing return type statement, required return type statement. So if you see, it's asking me for return type, whatever it is saying. Okay, so I'm going to say return hi in squeaky. Okay, squeaky voice, let's say. Okay, so what exactly is happening is that this function, I expect that this function is going to return me something, and it's going to return me hi in squeaky voice. As it's going to return me something like textual, hence I am adding the return type as string. So if you see in single quotes, I am returning something. It is string, right? So whenever you want a function that it's going to return me something back, okay, anything, it can be anything. Depends, if it was an integer, I would have had a string. Instead of string, I would have integer, but right now it's going to return the string. That's why I'm adding as it is going to return me hi in squeaky voice, hence I'm adding the return type as string. But right now, as we already know, talking Tom, we give something input to it and it returns it back inside the squeaky voice. Now, whatever input that we are going to give, it's not static, right? It's not always going to be hi, 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 hi. It can be hi, welcome, thank you, bye, whatever it can be, Tommy Hilfiger or something like that. So here, whatever input that we are going to pass inside this talking Tom, it's not defined, and if it is not defined, you can use a parameter string input, we can say. Okay, and whatever we can say that input in squeaky voice. That's it. So what this function is going to return, whatever I'm going to say. Okay, let's say this way. Yeah, so whatever I'm going to say, let's say hi. If I pass hi over here, it's just going to return hi in squeaky voice. If I pass welcome, it's just going to say hi in welcome in squeaky voice. So what this talking Tom is doing, it's taking an input from the end user and it's passing back something in squeaky voice. So when you expect a function to return something, that's where you use return type. So let's try to execute it. Let's execute it. It's not going to return anything. The reason is because it's this return is nothing but it's throwing something out. In Apex, if he's throwing something, this is nothing but let's consider it with this example. Okay, this is your function, let's say. Okay, if it has a return statement, it's throwing something out. But if it is throwing something out, I have to store it somewhere, right? If it is throwing something out, I have to store it somewhere. In order to store anything inside Apex, we create a variable. Okay, we create a variable. Now it the variable or the type of the variable, it's defined by the type of the function it is going to returning. So it's return string, so I have to store it within the string itself. So if I go over here, I have to store it within a variable. Let's say string return by Tom. So what's going to happen is that talking Tom, I'm going to pass hello inside it as a parameter, and it's going to return hello in squeaky voice, right? And as the input of this or the return type of this function is string, so it's going to throw the string thing, right? It's going to throw string, some kind of string. It's going to throw the string, right? And as it's going to throw the string, I have to create a variable here. Right? I have to create a variable. Let's name it as v. Okay, I have to create a variable of type string in order to store the thrown value. Now, as soon as I store it, I can use system.debug to print the value hi, or we can say return by Tom. And let's execute it now. So if you see hello in squeaky voice. So in simple terms, what has happened is I had a function, it takes an input, and I want this function to return something back to me, which is of type string. Hence, I am keeping the return type as string. As I am having the return type as string, I should have a return statement as well. And this return statement is going to throw a string, right? But if it is throwing a string, just like a ball is being thrown, I have to catch that ball at the other end as well. So for that purpose, I am creating a variable. If you see, I am creating a variable. So whatever this function is going to throw, it's going to be stored inside this variable, and I'm just printing it over here. So this is what the return type is inside Apex. If you found this video helpful, I request you to please subscribe to this channel.